Black Country New Road, Ants from Up There album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning. Here tonight to chat about this latest album from Black Country New Road, who took out in a huge way in 2021 with their debut album for the first time. Here it is right over here. It's a fantastic album. I mean, last year was so huge for post-punk and weird punk and art punk and dance punk and all these genres of punk. And honestly, a lot of it started with this album right here. This album had a lot of hype leading up to it, featuring singles like Sunglasses and my personal favorite Athens, France, as well as Science Fair. And this was a super risk-taking post-punk album that I did not expect. It dove deep into the world of jazz and post-rock and, some math rock as well. A lot of people compared this to the work of Slint. To say that this was an exciting debut would be undermining it, honestly. Now, the band has, made some headlines the last couple of days leading up to this album, not only because of the string of fantastic singles leading up to this album, but with the news that frontman and lead singer Isaac Wood would be leaving the band shortly after. I mean, mutually, but this news came as a shock to me because on paper, these guys were one of the most exciting and risk-taking and genuinely genre-bending post-punk bands in a while. Now, they say they're going to trudge on. They say that they're going to be still making music deep down the line. I don't know who the frontman is going to be, or frontwoman, but honestly, if this is the note that they're leaving us on, it is a hell of a note. Early on in the album, we get tracks like Chaos Space Marine, my favorite track here, and I think the best single that the band has put out in this album cycle. I love the off-kilter, jazzy horns that we get here, as well as this extravagant, very flamboyant flair to this entire track. Now, it's not as hellish or as dark as any of the moments on their debut album, that's for sure. But it is wonderfully performed, especially Isaac's performance. His performance on this track and most of this album is just truly dynamic. I mean, whatever he does going forward, I'm going to want to hear it. He is such a charismatic character. I mean, this whole track is a feast for art rock and art punk fans. And if you, stop listening for a split second, you will miss so many details. This is a hell of a start. And I will say this. I implore you to sit with this album a little bit, even a little bit more so than their debut. There's a lot to take in, a lot of intricate details, a lot of different genres coming to pass. Concorde is extravagant, even a little elegant at parts. It has this regality to it that I cannot just sit there and ignore. I mean, it comes off so meticulous. So much of this album is so incredibly detailed. I mean, it's a long track, spoiler alert. A lot of the tracks on this album are plus 6 minutes. But it feels like a happening. This feels like a must listen. And these song lengths, while some of them run over 10 minutes long, often feel justified. It is beautiful, and it is so passionate. Then we have Bread Song, which if you're a Black Country New Road fan, if you're a fan of their debut album, you'll be really excited to hear this track. It's probably the most that album sounding track here. It's tense, it's hushed, it sounds more dangerous than it actually is. And it's just as intricate and full of drama. I mean, layers upon layers. You do have to turn your brain on for a lot of this. Now listen, it's not an easy listen, hence the, once again, plus 6 minute runtime, but the rewards are certainly here, and there's a plenty of them. We also have Goodwill Hunting, which is one of the most immediate tracks here. You don't really need to sit with this as much. It's got a little bit of a punchy riff. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of that dry cleaning album that came out last year. But it's even more whimsical. It is more challenging lyrically at times, but it's also more rewarding at the end of the day. I don't want to give away too much on this album. I really don't, because a lot of these tracks I feel like you should sit with and get your own impressions on. It's that rewarding. But even if you don't approach it like that, and you do hear reviews of it first and approach it in that style, the rewards, this album is so exciting. This band is so ahead of the curve. To hear that they're not going to be performing with Isaac moving forward, it's sad. Influences continue to be aplenty. The performances continue to be dynamic and wild and sporadic. I mean, even a little explosive in their own way. Yeah, this album is wild. And Haldern, not for nothing, not only is this my favorite deep cut here, I think it's my favorite track here. This is an absolutely heartwarming, passionate, jazz-inspired tune. This is an absolutely heartwarming, passionate tune inspired by a lot of jazz. Once again, a lot of this album is with passionate performances all around. I mean, for a plus 5 minute ballad, it plays so smoothly, almost too smoothly. It is hypnotic, it is breathtaking, it is incredible. How was this not a single? Maybe you haven't guessed it by now, but this album is a feast. I don't have that much to criticize. I mean, the intro to this album, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I would have been just as happy if they just dove right in. And Mark's theme is actually a track that really didn't hit me as hard as it probably could. It's fine for a little jazzy interlude. A lot of the jazz influences on this album are some of my favorite bits to it. But this just seems a little too jammy for me. I don't know. It doesn't have as much structure, and that might be your thing, but this is just kind of average. And I might shock a few, but honestly, Basketball Shoes is my least favorite track here. I mean, yeah, once again, some of the jazz elements of this track are pretty beautiful. But a lot of the other earlier tunes on this album just hit me so much harder than this. I mean, the pacing here doesn't really pop as hard. Like, if you're up for a little bit more tension, and I don't know, some more erratic performances, trust me, there's 7 better tracks on this album. But what makes this track so hard and so difficult is it is by far the longest track on this album. 12 minutes long. That's almost a quarter of this album. I mean, some of the heavier parts are okay. They're a lot better. But still, I think this is the weakest track here. But outside of that, yeah, this is the first absolute must-listen album of the year. And by far, too. The place where he inserted the blade is ridiculous. I continue to be baffled by just how elegant a lot of this album is. Like, as erratic and weird and challenging this album is, it is also classy and staggeringly beautiful. It's a major risk of an album, but I keep feeling like there are constant left turns. Like every time I feel like I am on track with this album and I feel like I know where it's going, there is a sharp turn. Honestly, I was not expecting this. I expected to enjoy this album quite a bit, but I did not expect to love this album as much as I do. And also, it continues to be overflowing with personality, especially lyric-wise. And Snow Globes is wonderful as well. I mean, just realize there is a lot of patience that needs to be had going into this album. Like I said, there's a lot of long track lengths. This is a long album, but then you hear tracks like Snow Globes and the sheer emotion on display here. Wow. Compare this to, like, Mark's theme, and I don't think it comes close. And from a performance standpoint, I don't think Isaac Wood has ever sounded better than this track. Like, I honestly can't help but actually feel genuinely emotional over this. It is a happening. An absolute happening. I knew going into this album that they were putting out some really great singles, and I knew that I was going to get a little emotional listening to this, and I knew I was going to enjoy the bulk of this album because I like their style. I like the style of Black Country New Road. But this is this year's first absolute must-listen album. If you are into rock music, especially of the punk genre, especially rock music that pushes your limits and challenges you a bit. I hope that they continue to trudge on and do something different because they have a great sound. But for now, they have given us something truly special. I'm feeling a light 9 on this album, my first 9 of the year. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.